I always believed loyalty was something you earned by staying. 35 years. That's how long Linda had been in my life. We were 27 when we met. Two young women in uncomfortable heels at Macy's corporate offices. We grew up together. Through her divorces, her bankruptcy, her mother's funeral. I held her hand through all of it. When her second husband left her 3 years ago, broke, bitter, and angry, she showed up at my brownstone with swollen eyes and a single suitcase. I didn't hesitate. I gave her a job. Marketing director. $60,000 a year. Full benefits. An office with sunlight pouring through tall windows on Spring Street. She cried when I offered it. Said I'd saved her life. I believed her. By then, I had built something real. CW Designs. What started at my kitchen table had become a $15 million fashion accessories brand. Handbags. Scarves. Jewelry. Pieces women bought for themselves, not because someone gifted them, but because they wanted something beautiful. 20 years of 16-hour days. No investors. No shortcuts. Just me. Marcus Chin joined 10 years ago. Brilliant with numbers. Cold when necessary. Everything I wasn't. I gave him operational control. He gave me growth. Or so I thought. That rainy Thursday in October, I went back to the office for design sketches. The building was quiet. Elevator humming. Hallways dim. And then I heard voices. Coming from the conference room. The door was slightly open. I was about to walk in. Until I heard Marcus say, "We push her out by January." I didn't breathe. Linda laughed. She'll never see it coming. Poor Catherine actually thinks we're grateful. Poor Catherine. My hand found the wall. And then they said something that changed everything. But what they didn't know was that I had been a contracts attorney long before I ever designed a handbag. And that hallway? That was the last place they ever underestimated me. Because I didn't walk into that room. And that was their biggest mistake. I don't remember walking away from that door. I don't remember pressing the elevator button. Or driving home through the rain. But I remember the words. Clear. Precise. Like a knife being sharpened slowly. Once we get her signature, we rebrand without her. Chin's Sullivan Luxury. My name erased. My company repackaged. My life's work handed over with a forged smile. They were going to undervalue the business. Tell me it was worth $10 million instead of 15. Slip a 5-year non-compete into the sale documents. Make sure I couldn't work in fashion ever again. Linda laughed. She's tired anyway. We're doing her a favor. I had given that woman a salary when she had nothing. I had invited Marcus to my home for holidays. Watched his daughter graduate. Signed his equity papers with pride. And they were planning to bury me in my own boardroom. When I got home, I didn't cry. I sat in my living room. Chelsea skyline glowing outside the window. City lights blinking like nothing had changed. But something inside me had. Because here's what they didn't know. Before CW Designs. Before the handbags. Before the glossy magazine spreads. I spent 15 years as a contracts attorney. I knew every trick. Every buried clause. Every silent takeover. Every elegant form of corporate betrayal. And they had just admitted everything out loud. That night, I didn't pour wine. I opened my laptop. I wrote down every word I remembered. Time. Tone. Exact phrasing. Then I did something they never expected. I called Sarah Park. One of the most feared corporate litigators in Manhattan. I need an hour, I told her. And I need your entire team. Because if Linda and Marcus wanted to push me out quietly, they had just started a war they weren't qualified to fight. And I was about to remind them who built the battlefield. But I didn't confront them. Not yet. I smiled the next morning. And that smile? That was the first move. The next morning, I walked into the office like nothing had happened. Same heels. Same leather portfolio. Same calm expression. Linda brought me coffee. Rough traffic yesterday, she asked sweetly. I smiled. Terrible. Marcus updated me on fall sales projections. Numbers strong. Margins improving. He looked proud. I nodded like a tired founder who was finally ready to step back. And that wasn't hard. Because before that hallway, I had been thinking about slowing down. About legacy. About maybe selling some shares. They just thought it was their idea. That afternoon, I mentioned casually, "I've been wondering if it's time to simplify things. Maybe sell some equity." I saw it. That flicker. The glance between them. Excitement they couldn't hide fast enough. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Well, if you ever wanted to keep it in the family, I'd be interested in increasing my stake." Linda nodded. "It would be so good for the brand. Fresh leadership. Fresh leadership." I almost admired the confidence. Behind the scenes, Sarah's team moved fast. Forensic accountants began reviewing transactions Marcus had approved. Private investigators documented Linda's quiet lunches with our largest retail clients, meetings I was never invited to. And then we found something interesting. Very interesting. Vendor payments to companies that didn't exist. Offshore accounts. For $100,000 over 2 years. Linda had been accepting undisclosed payments from retailers in exchange for premium placements. 200,000 more. Bribes. The irony almost made me laugh. They were planning to steal from me, while already stealing from me. I didn't interrupt them. I didn't accuse them. I encouraged them. Over lunch one day, I told Linda softly, "I just don't have the energy anymore." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You've carried this long enough, Catherine. The performance deserved an award." 2 weeks later, I called a special board meeting. 3 board members. Me, Marcus, and my daughter, Jessica, who rarely flew in for meetings. But this time, she booked the first flight from California. Marcus assumed we were finalizing the buyout structure. Linda thought she was about to become co-owner of a $15 million brand. They walked into the conference room smiling. Then they saw the attorneys. 3 of them. And a forensic accountant. The smiles disappeared. Because this wasn't a buyout meeting. It was an audit. And I was done pretending. But the real shock was still in the folders waiting in front of them. They stopped just inside the door. Marcus recovered first. "What's going on?" I gestured toward the chairs. "Please. Sit." My daughter Jessica was already seated beside me. Calm. Watching. Learning. Sarah Park sat across from them, hands folded neatly on the table. 2 additional attorneys beside her. And Thomas Brennan, forensic accountant, laptop open. The same conference room. The same table. Where 6 weeks earlier they had planned my removal. I waited until they were seated. Then I slid 2 folders across the table. One to Marcus. One to Linda. "These," I said evenly, "are transcripts of a conversation that took place in this room on October 19th. The color drained from Linda's face. Marcus didn't open his folder immediately. I was in the hallway, I continued. "And yes, before you ask, I recorded it. New York is a one-party consent state." Silence. The kind that feels heavy in your lungs. They opened the folders. Page after page. Their own words. "Push her out by January. She'll never see it coming. Chin Sullivan luxury. Low ball the valuation. Bury the non-compete." Linda's hands began to shake. "That's not." "Please," I said softly. "Don't insult me." Sarah leaned forward. "In addition to the recording, Ms. Westbrook retained our firm to conduct a financial review." Thomas turned his laptop around. "Mr. Chin, you approved payments totaling approximately $400,000 to shell vendors tied to offshore accounts." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Ms. Sullivan," Thomas continued, "you accepted over $200,000 in undisclosed promotional incentives from retailers." Bribes. The word didn't need to be spoken. It was written across both of their faces. I folded my hands on the table. "You plan to commit fraud," I said. "While actively committing fraud." Linda began crying. "Catherine, please." I needed the money. I looked at her. Really looked at her. "I gave you a salary. Benefits. Stability. You said I saved your life." Marcus finally spoke. "What do you want?" There it was. Not apology. Not remorse. Negotiation. Here's what they never understood about me. I don't react emotionally. I calculate. "You're both resigning." "Effective immediately," I said. "You'll sign restitution agreements." "Marcus, your equity reverts to the company." "Linda, you repay every dollar or we pursue criminal charges." Marcus stiffened. That's unreasonable. Sarah smiled. It's generous. I leaned back in my chair. You have until 5 p.m. After that, we file charges. Linda whispered, 35 years. Friendship? I asked quietly. No. That ended in the hallway. They signed by 4. Pale. Silent. Escorted out by building security to clear their offices. Marcus believed he owned 30% of the company. He owned 18. And after restitution? Nothing. When the door closed behind them, Jessica hugged me. Mom, I'm so sorry. Don't be, I told her. This is a lesson. Trust is not a strategy. And loyalty is not guaranteed. But what happened next? That was the part no one expected. Because without them, the company didn't collapse. It thrived. The office felt different the next morning. Quieter. Cleaner. Like something toxic had finally been removed from the air. Marcus's name was already gone from the door. Linda's office stood empty, sunlight pouring across a desk no one would ever sit at again. Some of the staff were nervous. Whispers travel fast in Manhattan. But I gathered everyone in the main workspace. No theatrics. No gossip. Just facts. There were financial irregularities, I said calmly. They've been handled. We're restructuring. And we're moving forward. Forward. That word matters. Because here's what betrayal doesn't expect. It doesn't expect you to get stronger. Within 3 weeks, I hired a new COO, a woman I'd respected for years in the industry. Sharp. Ethical. Unimpressed by ego. I promoted 2 junior managers who had quietly carried more weight than anyone realized. We brought in a new CFO. Within a month, he uncovered inefficiencies Marcus had deliberately ignored. Profits increased 30%. 30. Without embezzlement. Without side deals. Without divided loyalty. The spring collection launched in March. Critical acclaim. Industry praise. Headlines calling it our strongest season yet. Linda tried calling me twice. I didn't answer. Marcus sent an email. I deleted it after the first sentence. Some betrayals don't deserve closure. They deserve consequences. Last I heard, Marcus was consulting for a small textile company in New Jersey. Linda moved to Florida. Retail. Irony has a sense of humor. And me? I'm 63 now. I still walk into CW Designs 4 days a week. Still sketch. Still create. But I do it smarter. With stronger contracts. Stronger oversight. Stronger boundaries. People sometimes ask if I miss her. If 35 years means nothing. And I tell them the truth. I don't miss the woman she became. I miss the woman I thought she was. But that woman never existed. And that rainy Thursday? It wasn't the worst day of my life. It was the day I stopped being naive. It was the day I remembered who I was before trust made me soft. And the most powerful part? I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't break. I won. Sitting in my brownstone that evening, I poured a glass of wine, not to soothe pain, but to toast clarity. CW Designs was thriving. Every sketch, every client, every decision was mine again. I wasn't just a survivor, I was the architect of my own comeback. I thought about Linda. The friend I had trusted for 35 years, the person I had treated like family. Her betrayal had been sharp, precise, almost surgical, but it had underestimated me. I thought about Marcus, the partner I had counted on, who believed loyalty was a weakness. He'd learned the hard way that intelligence is the weapon you wield when the world expects emotion. And I thought about myself. 63, wiser, stronger, unshakable. I still design handbags. I still create. But I do it with eyes wide open. Trust is not given blindly. Loyalty is not owed simply because you've offered it. And sometimes, the people who claim to love you are the ones sharpening knives behind your back. I raised my glass and smiled. Not out of vengeance. Not out of anger. But out of power. The power of knowing that when someone tried to steal everything from me, I didn't just survive. I won. And if you think betrayal is the end, wait until you see what happens when people underestimate a woman who built her empire from scratch. The smartest moves are always invisible until the moment they hit.